going on from some of the things that Phil's been talking around about the kind of culture that we have in organisations that are going to help us along this journey of transformation, whether that's digital or otherwise. Linking into what he's been talking about creating empowered teams and empowered individuals, there's an element that I hope he didn't touch on, which is actually around the leadership of those teams and the leadership of those individuals. So that's what my little section here is about. It's about this thing called servant leadership, which is another couple of nice little buzzwords that have been around for a while. You've probably heard, and they've been mentioned at work, or if they haven't, then maybe you've thought about what the next stages in leadership might be. I'm going to start by asking you a question. So what is leadership today in your organisation? You don't have to tell me, because there'd be 50 or 60 voices telling me simultaneously, what is the leadership like in our organisation? But is the leadership in your organisation a bit like that? You know, does it kind of feel a bit like hero worship? Is there this godlike figure who pontificates to the great and the good, yeah, and that we believe in and that we follow through some kind of mesmeric capability that they have, the ability to take our business wherever it needs to go? Maybe that's how leadership is in your business. I'm not saying that's right or wrong, I'm just asking you a question about whether that is leadership in your business. Quite a lot of businesses run that way. Some businesses run that way though. Yeah, is leadership like that in your business? Thou shalt, make it so. Everything that I say is what you need to implement. You will have no thoughts or control of your own. Yeah, you will work to the greater good of the business in a regimented and very well controlled way. And I know Phil was perhaps talking about command and control as a way of running a business. Maybe one of those two models of leadership is what exists inside your business, I don't know. Or maybe there's elements of both of those in your business, I don't know. What I do know is that leadership of today's businesses is all about maximising customer value. There isn't really any other measure of success of a business these days compared with customer value, which then leads to shareholder value. That drive for maximising the value to your customers is what's going to make your businesses successful in this transformative world that we're moving through right now. So your job as leaders inside your business, whether that's a big team, a small team, the whole business, has to be geared towards that maximisation of value for your customers. Because, as we said earlier, those customers aren't going to stick around if you don't continue to provide the maximum value that you can. Although I might still be with HSBC, who knows? How are you going to do that in this transformative world that we're living in? Well, you could have a strategy. Yeah, you could absolutely put in place a fantastic strategy for maximising the success of your business by maximising the customer value that you provide. Whippy-do. Great strategy. It's not going to succeed. It is not going to succeed unless you change the culture of your business. You change the culture of your business to a business that, as Phil described, everybody's working towards this idea of maximising value. We could have a strategy and we could try and implement it, but unless we change the underlying culture to a much more agile, a much more iterative, a much more reactive culture, we're not going to have a business that's going to be able to provide that value. You could put some processes in. Everybody likes a bit of process. Nice to have a bit of workflow to follow. Yeah, we fill the forms in, we do the things. Yeah, absolutely. It's very, very important to have a process. Well, we do need some level of control, but actually what we should be putting the value into is the people, not the process. Yeah, let's find the right kinds of people to do the right kinds of things inside our business, rather than worrying about the ways that we've worked in the past before. I think David alluded to that this morning in one of the Q&As. Look at what you do. Is what you do the right way to do what you do? Or are there other ways to do what you need to do? You could only do that by having the right kinds of people. And there was a gentleman at the back who mentioned things like creativity and the very transferable skills that are the kinds of skills that you're looking for in your leaders today. There are some principles to servant leadership. Servant leadership came around, or the term came around way back in the 1970s, but there are some core principles to what being a servant leader is all about. And Phil alluded to this. Servant leaders are very much more involved in coaching than they are in worrying about command and control and organisational power. Does that mean that you don't have some kind of hierarchical structure inside your business? No, it doesn't mean that at all. There's nothing wrong with a hierarchically organised business. What it does mean, though, is that the ways in which you as leaders approach your team members is much more around that collaborative, collegiate way of working, that coaching way of working, than it is by actually dictating what needs to be done. Harnessing the creativity and the innovativity of those people. If you need any help with that, I really do recommend you this book. I didn't have anything to do with writing it, so there's no monetary benefit here. It's one of the very best books I've ever read around coaching and mentoring, and I've got the ISBN for you at the end. It's a fantastic book. So a more collegiate, collaborative coaching type approach. One of the other principles will be to be a listening leader, and it has this lovely acronym RASA. So receive the information, acknowledge the information, summarise the information, and ask questions about what you've heard. As individuals, I think a lot of us have lost the skills of listening. We're not good at listening. We find it difficult to ask the right kinds of questions, and we find it difficult to actually hear the things that people are saying to us. So as a servant leader, you are very much a listening leader. If you need help with that, the fantastic book by Julian Treasure, How to Be Heard. Julian Treasure's made a very successful career out of helping people listen better. And being a listening leader, you will find that you get far more achieved. The third principle, be a humble person. That might be difficult, might be easy. Be a humble person. Understand what the skills are that your team have. Understand how they bring those skills to the table, what knowledge they have, how they might be able to add to help you become a better leader and lead your team in a better way. Fantastic book. Humility is the new smart. Rethinking human excellence in the smart machine age. Fantastic book. Recommend it to you. In a world where machines are going to do more and more and more of what we have been required to do, we get freed up to do more and more and more of what we can do, which is to be creative, to be innovative, and not to do the things that we've always done in the past. I know if I was a medical student now, or if I was a law student now, I might be thinking really quite hard about whether I'd actually made the right decision about my future career. Chances are I'm probably pretty bright if I'm a medical student or a law student. Chances are quite a bit of what my job entails, as perhaps something like a solicitor or a GP, in 5 or 10 years' time will probably be done by a machine. A machine that can diagnose my illness much more quickly and probably much more accurately than my GP, and can do thousands of those diagnoses every second, as opposed to perhaps one every 20 minutes. Or a machine that can do my land registry searches for me, thousands of them every second, rather than taking a few days for information to come back to me as a solicitor. So understand what people know, understand how they can be creative, and just be humble in the fact that actually as their leader, you might not know as well as they do. I'm very lucky that I am David's manager. Unfortunately, I'm also incredibly lucky that he knows so much more about what he knows than I know. There's no point in me trying to understand it. And I'm always, I hope, very humble with Dave. So where does that take us as a servant leader then? Well, it takes us to be this kind of person, to be an innovative person, to be motivational, to be cross-cultural and cross-geography and cross-function. It's a different kind of leadership. It's a leadership that takes us into a world where we push people to challenge the ways we're thinking, to challenge the ways we're thinking in the business, to challenge what we do in the business. to be motivational and to work across the different parts of the business in a much more collegiate way. Much less command and control, much less organisational power. So where does that take us to? Well, it takes us to maybe leadership in the future is actually that. It's much more about the joining of hands, much more about joining the pieces together. So you as individuals, perhaps adopting a slightly different way of working with your teams, that innovative, motivational, cross-cultural approach. And that's me done. I'm in time.